This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Matt O'Neill, and you're a happiness expert. And yeah, you've written a book, Good Mood, The Good Mood Revolution. And I want to thank you for being on the Pam Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Keith, man, I'm so freaking happy to be here today with you. It is awesome to talk to creative people doing creative things.
Well, that's what we're about. We've been on the air since 2016, and I think
One of
we're
the OGs. You're one of the OGs of podcasting.
yeah. This is like episode like 1,000, like 144.
Wow, man. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations. I just saw a statistic the other day that less than 10% of podcasts get to year one.
Yeah, we've been doing it since we actually started 2015 on a totally different platform. It's not around called Spearman.
Yeah.
And then we went on Anchor, we're going through StreamYard, we're on a bunch of different platforms simultaneously. But it's just, we enjoy this form because we get to talk to people like yourself all the time. We typically talk to people like almost every day of the week. But one of the questions we always ask anybody that's on the show is a couple questions we ask everybody. It's like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, it's intrinsic motivation, and it's changed over the years. And I think it does for all of us, right? When I was younger, I was motivated to be the best. Like I just wanted to be the best, and I wanted to prove I was worthwhile. So I teach happiness. I teach how happiness is our choice. But I didn't know that when I was younger. And I didn't learn all the stuff I know now. And I was being driven by the ego. And the ego is always trying to gain power, gain success, gain wealth. It's trying to prove that it's worthwhile because when we're living in the world of ego, we don't think we are worthwhile. And that's what drove me when I was younger, man. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to prove to people I was something because I didn't think deep down that I was. And then something's changed. You think that if you stop pushing yourself to be the best, to prove that you're worthwhile, that you'll stop creating, that you'll start to become lazy. It's not true. That is just a lie. It's in our head. It's just head trash. What ends up happening when you stop like pushing yourself so hard, like to prove something, is that true creativity comes through. And this is a creativity that comes through not from like a desire to prove anything, but just like the source of all things, like just pure, just creativity, unbridled potential. It's unlimited, and it just wants to express itself through you because it can. And I can't even explain it, but it's more like that. Like it's just spontaneous creation.
Well, that's kind of like the spontaneous. Well, that's the inspiration. If you think about the romantic poets, I always like name check poets because before I became a musician and a producer, I was like drawn to Victorian poetry and the Harlem Renaissance poetry. And I found like William Blake and Tennyson, Wordsworth, Lord Byron, all those guys. And there's this idea about the muse. Like the muse is like, and you can kind of tap into it. And like musicians do this all the time. We kind of fall into this, I'm kind of hit that universal note. I'm trying to find that key. And it's like a lot of times it's stream of consciousness.
Yep.
And it's like trusting yourself. I've talked to writers, authors, painters, all kinds of creative people. And they say it's always good to plan something. But a lot of times if you just like open yourself to be like a vessel, that you have a lot of capability as an artist, but sometimes you overthink it. And if you let the thinking go a little bit and kind of tap into that kind of, muse state or flow state, it just sometimes the things that happen without being planned, because it's like stuff going on in your subconscious, there's stuff going on that if you let it come out, sometimes it's better than the stuff you planned.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it takes talent too, right? And talent, I think talent is something that you develop through purposeful practice. And Malcolm Gladwell had the 10,000 hours. You need 10,000 hours of purposeful practice to master something. So you got to put in your hours. Like the muse will come out through my 6-year-old daughter too.
Yeah.
But it's a 6-year-old creativity. So
Yeah,
it's,
it's
it's
adapted to
beautiful.
10,000 hours. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and like you'll see like just wild combinations of creativity. You're like, oh man, I would never expect to do something like that. And sometimes it just turns out super cool. But as soon as she gets her 10,000 hours on wherever her creative craft is, then you're not creating from the ego. You start to just create from channeling whatever that inspiration is. And the word inspirited is inspirited. Inspired is in spirit. Like
Yep.
the spirit embodies you. That's what inspired really means, is that I'm inspirited. And that muse comes out, and then what you create is just phenomenal. And it's like a co-creation with your creator. That's how I see it. So I'll pray, man. I'll pray before I get on this podcast. I'm like, God, guide me today. Guide me to say whatever the person listening needs to hear the most. I am your instrument. I'm here to serve. And I'll tell you what, man, it feels freaking good. Like when you are co-creating and you're just in that flow, that's when I feel best.
Yeah, I think it's about like in terms of finding happiness, a lot of times people, like get the tortured artist, the tortured poet. But a lot of times it's like if you can just find the sweet spot, like a frequency, like a lot of I'm a spiritual person, kind of a Buddhist, that's my kind of Eastern philosophy. But the
Like, yeah.
idea that you find kind of like I don't know, you find the balance in life and you find connections and you find, you know, finding that key, right? To find
Yeah.
that key.
In
And it's
that Buddhist belief is that we're not separate beings.
oh
That in
yeah, that
fact
was connected.
there is no self and there is no other, that all is one. And so it's going back to the same thing, like, hey, let me plug into the universal
Yeah,
oneness.
universal truth, like universal
Yeah.
keys. And the idea that, there's this idea of like the law of attraction. Like so if you put out positive energy and you put out kind of that mindfulness, then things start to happen around you. And if you're open to it, you pick up on the opportunities. But if you're closed, like if you say, I'm not good enough, I have imposter syndrome, I can never do that. When the opportunity comes, like you don't latch onto it because you're not vibrating at the right frequency. And you're kind of like,
Well,
you're in
well,
the
and
wrong,
this
the
is
wrong
this is
way.
what's interesting about what you're saying, and this is part of what I teach too, is that you do actually latch on to opportunities when you think I'm not good enough. You just latch on, like I did
Oh,
this. I latch on to opportunities that prove to me that what I believe. They prove to me that I'm not good enough. It's interesting if you have a belief that you're not good enough, and it'll manifest in ways where you select partners who are unavailable.
mm-hmm.
And
It's like,
and then
yeah,
and
to
you
flip it
and then you get rejected and you're like, "Oh, yeah, it just proves that I really am not good enough." Or you might in the career world, you might have big success because you're going for this big goal, and then all of a sudden everything gets sabotaged and falls apart, and it proves to you that you really weren't good enough. And this is what I used to do too. I used to self-sabotage. So like getting those higher frequencies, those good mood emotions, man, it doesn't just make you happy. It makes everything in your life click, because all of a sudden you're like, I am worthy. I am worthy of love. Like I am worthy of success. I am worthy of all the good things that I want to have come to me, come to me. And once you fully believe that and embrace that, and then you start to do like not self-sabotaging things, self-helping and propelling things, like be kind to people and be gracious and say thank you and have lots of gratitude and have empathy and compassion. All of a sudden, everyone in the world like wants to support you because you're supporting all of them, and you're putting out the good things and they come back to you. And that's what's awesome.
well, that's the whole idea, like kind of like the law of attraction is it doesn't just bring the good things to you. Like if you're in the wrong frequency, like if you're in a dissonant mode, then you're gonna bring dissonance around. You're gonna bring distortion around. You bring noise around. But if
Yeah.
you're in like harmony, because I think about music terms, right? So if in harmony, then everybody's gonna be in the key. Everybody's kind of in tune. So then you have that situation where you're more empathetic, right? So more people are gonna be around you because you're not prickly. You're not causing all this distortion and so
You know,
you
it's so
can
it's so interesting, man. When I didn't have good moods, and I was struggling with anger and shame and guilt and sadness and overwhelm and all the different, there's 8 bad moods that get in the way of our happiness. There's just 8. And then all the other bad moods kind of fork off of those 8, but there's just 8 primary ones. And I just named off like 6 of them. When I was dominated by those, my frequency was kind of dark, right? And then the music I listened to, the music I loved the most was pretty angry hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And angry rock, like angry music. That's
you get brought to it. Yeah, it's a lot of attraction goes either way.
and so I would, I just loved 90s hip hop. And of course there were some good non-angry hip hop artists I listened to, but like I really resonated with some of the more angry lyrics. Now my whole emotional frequency has changed. And when angry, degrading lyrics come on, all of a sudden I'm like, man, that's not really music. That's not music for me.
Yeah, well, it's like your alignment to like the universe is can be point in time where you are. So if you like where you are as a person is like you could be a person who wants to listen to like Stevie Wonder songs in your life.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Very affirmative, very uplifting.
Yeah.
Like compared to like kind of like a Kurt Cobain, right?
That's right. Yeah. So in the 90s, I was listening, of course, Nirvana. I'll put on Nirvana now, and I'm like, man, this is so downer.
Yeah, well, it represented his life state was in that mode, and as an artist, he represented where he was. The question is like, do you want to be in that place, or do you just understand it, as a critic, right? So I like to listen to all types of genres, just as a critic or a listener, as a musician. So I can look at like a jazz or classical, whatever, and look at like, well, he's good at what he did, representing how he felt. But do you want to be in that downward spiral all the time? Probably not.
No. And so, it's crazy, at the time, I'm listening to like, what I think is non-mainstream, music, but is really just kind of angry or sad or hurting artists, and this is but I thought I was like, my musical taste was really high and sophisticated, but really it was just my emotional state wasn't super great. And now as I've raised myself into more of a happy human being and I teach happiness, I find myself in mainstream, like more, all pop music is genuinely happy, right? And so now what I despised before, like all that pop, I'm like, oh man, I'm not into pop. Now, like I've got kids too, and we're listening to whatever the mainstream music is. And I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of vibe with this. Oh, I like this new song. I like where they're going with this. But it's all happy, man. It's all happy.
Well, it's like all relative. Like, sometimes you look at something for the depth of a writer, right? So if somebody writes a great American novel, it might be kind of challenging. Right? It might have some places that are dark and it might have some lessons. It might go to places that are kind of hard to deal with.
Has to. Any great story.
Yeah.
The hero has challenge, right? They hit the dark night of the soul. We were just watching a movie last night called Fighting with My Family. And it was a true story about this wrestler named Paige, who I don't know. Have you heard of this, Keith?
I think I heard of it. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh man, it was awesome because every single thing about the movie was absolutely true. And anyway, she hits the dark night of the soul, and it's bad. Her brother goes to jail. Her other brother's about to go to jail, getting in bar fights. Her dad's come out of jail. She thinks she's nothing. She thinks she's worthless, and she's blowing this shot to be a professional wrestler. And I'm watching this movie and I'm like, oh man, we're all just like, don't blow your shot. Don't throw it away. Like,
but sometimes you're on the cusp of something, but it's all mindset. A lot of times I'm with a lot of artists, and you can shake yourself out of your like climb. Like you can actually pull yourself out of it. I've been with guys that like they're on the upswing, and because they felt like, well, I should be the starving artist, or I should be like the college radio artist. So they do the self-sabotage because they go and they mess it up because like, well, if I get to be popular, I'm going to be like, what's on the top 20. And like, I don't like that.
I don't like that. Right.
I don't like that. So they keep themselves like, well, I'll be like Lou Reed and the Velvets. Well, even Lou Reed eventually got popular, right? So he didn't always stay in the Velvet Underground mode in like 1966 mode. He started working with people like Bowie and other people, and his stuff got more commercial. So eventually, like you can't, you hold that as a badge of honor, and a lot of people do that because they want to be in the starving artist mindset. It's like there's nothing wrong with trying to make some money.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to talk about this because this is really important what you're saying. We don't usually question our mindset. We think that our mindset's the right mindset. We think that we know what's best for us and what is true and what is not true. What I've learned is that we don't know anything, and that everything is true and everything is not true. So being a starving artist has advantages. Not being a starving artist has advantages. Going ahead and making music that all of a sudden starts to make you money somebody could call you a sellout. You making music that all of a sudden starts to like have appeal to more people might mean that you're actually impacting human beings in a larger way, right? There's always there's so many different angles to everything. And so the one thing I want to teach, and on this episode for sure, is to question your assumptions.
Oh yeah. I think you really have to baseline like where your head's at.
Your assumptions are not even yours.
Well, a lot of times they're coming from the outside world. They're coming from whatever your influences are, right?
Yeah. When I was growing up, man, my older brother, he's 10 years older than me. And he was the coolest, right? He's the dude I wanted to be. And he's the one that said, oh man, if you have money, you're not, that's not all right. You're a yuppie. You're not cool anymore. If you've got money, man, those are the worst people. The ones that have money, they're the worst people, right? And that was, so for me, a blind assumption was if you have money, you're no longer cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be cool, and I wanted to be liked by my older brother. Then I got when I was 26, I got this book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And T. Harv said, you have all this head trash about money, all of this head trash. And he's like, money is the root. And you're like, of all evil. And he says, money doesn't grow. And you're like, on trees. And like, we got all of this stuff about how bad money is like, drowning out in our head. And he said, so usually people think you can be happy or you can be wealthy, but you can't be both. Or you could be a great father and a great family man, or you could devote yourself to your business and be a great businessman, but you can't have both. And he said, I'm just going to say nothing that you believe is true and everything that you believe is true. So every single thing you believe is true because you make it true. You make sure if it's not cool to have money, you'll make sure you don't have money so you can be cool. Or you can be cool and have money. Is that also true? That's also true. And there's so many of them, right? Like how many of my heroes, my artistic heroes are so freaking cool and then they're on top of the game, right? Like who's going to say Jay-Z isn't cool? And he's like one of the wealthiest dudes ever. But if Sean Carter walks in a room, you're like, that dude's cool. He just is. He just oozes cool. And
I mean, you have to have, I think you have to be comfortable in yourself, right? A lot of times people are so uncomfortable with like their own identity because it's so caught up in like comparison traps. Like you're spending all the time trying to be like the Joneses, you're trying to be like this, you're trying to be like that. And you're not really looking like in the looking glass, which is like the Victorian kind of concept is all the points like look in the looking glass itself and try to figure out what's going on. And that's like the core of the artistic like vision. Like dive in deep so you understand the self. Then you can actually move forward. Like if you start to understand what is it that you who you are, what you want, what's your story. Is it, and then start to realize, is it really, is that the real you or a projected you? You know?
Yeah, on Buddhist philosophy, it's always the projected you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Everything is just a projection of consciousness. Yeah, and then I love that Buddhist philosophy because this again just goes into we're just making it all up. Everything we assume to be true about ourselves is made up by ourselves.
Well,
And,
that's like,
it's like I'm playing this role right now. I'm choosing to play this role. I'm choosing to believe the things I believe, but I could just as easily unbelieve the things I believe and believe something completely different. And this is where happiness starts to take off, because then you start to examine every single belief and say, is this belief increasing my happiness or is this belief harming me? And interestingly enough, I talked to my brother a lot, and he said this to me. He's like, "Well, what if something that makes somebody happy hurts somebody else?" He's like, "Is it good for them to just be happy?" And I thought that was a really good question.
it's like a philosophical question.
It's a philosophical question, yeah. Like, like what if it makes me happy to harm the environment to make money? Like, okay, I'll just dump waste into the rivers, and then I'll get because I'm doing it cheaper than everyone else, I get lots of profit. Well, here's the thing: is that anything that's harming another doesn't actually make you happy.
Yeah. It's a karmic thing. I think even if you don't understand karma, or you don't believe in karma, there's still kind of, you're in the world and you're connected. We're connected by energy. We're connected by vibrations. And so no matter what you do, your actions or your inactions affect other people.
And
And
you are accountable to them. You can believe in karma or not believe in karma. It doesn't matter. It's just like you can decide not to believe in gravity, but it's a law.
yeah, it's there.
Karma is a law. And when you do things that harm others, it comes back on you. And so you may, so again, on this philosophical question, if something makes the other people worse off, but it makes you happy, is that a good thing? And so my answer is that the only things that truly make you happy are good for all.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're thinking about you're living on the planet, you're in it, a system, right? Nature has all these systems, but then humans try to put themselves outside the system. Kind of this Calvinistic idea compared to the ancients that had
One
this
of the one of the one of the easiest things to be happy is to go into nature.
yeah.
One of the easiest things is go for a walk outside. Go be in the trees, listen to the birds, pet a dog. Like go be with nature. Go look at water. Go on a hike. Get sunshine, right? That is one of the things, it's a fail safe. If you're ever not feeling happy, go outside.
I think that's where a lot of humans make that mistake because there's some philosophies and some ideologies, some concepts that have put human beings outside of that natural system, right? And then if you put yourself outside of that system, then you're gonna tend to fail, and then you're gonna wonder why you're failing because you're not connected. Because
Yeah.
you're thinking that you don't need to be connected,
Uh,
and you
we're
and I
we're artists here, and we can use our imagination. Imagine this: you get on a rocket ship and you take off from Earth, and takes a huge amount of energy to get you past the gravitational pull. But eventually, it takes less and less and less, and one of the boosters falls off, and another booster falls off, and then you start to just fly away at a rapid pace because there's no longer any particles holding you back. And you turn around and you look back at where you just came from, and this tiny blue dot is behind you. And surrounding that little tiny blue dot is vast, 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 dark emptiness of nothing. That's where we are right now. We are on one tiny blue dot, all the plants are with us, the animals are with us, the water is with us, the soil is with us. We are one ecosystem. We are not separate from it. If you were to look back at that planet, you would see one planet. I had an opportunity to meet Jane Goodall, who spent time studying the chimpanzees in the Gombe. And Jane said to me, she said, we think that we're different from the animal world and the plant world, and so that we can abuse them. But if the plant world dies, we die. If the animal world suffers, we suffer. So we've got to stop. So one of the 8 bad moods is greed.
Mhm.
And greed is driving so much of the destruction. We would heal the planet when we healed our emotions.
Well,
This is
yeah,
the issue, is that our
yeah.
emotion, but greed. So why does greed pop up? This is a good question. Again, we want to question what's going on in our head. Well, there's a part of us that just wants to survive, and that part of us is the human ego. And the human ego says, the more I hoard, the greater my survival chances are. You and I were talking about being a little bit more spiritual. In the Lord's Prayer, it says, God, give me today's daily bread. And if every day we wake up and we say, hey, provide for me today's bread. I don't need 10,000 days worth of bread.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Provide today's bread. And guess what? Today's bread's always been provided your whole life. Every single day you've ever been alive, today's bread has been provided to you. And if it hadn't, you wouldn't be here. So we
I
don't
think
need to hoard. We don't need to go ahead and get 10,000 days worth of bread. We don't need to destroy the planet for more profit, destroy the animals for more profit. It's just not necessary. In fact, it's harmful. It's going back to that karma thing. So how can we just say, okay, guide me today, give me what I need today, and I'll be happy today. And then tomorrow when I wake up, guide me that day too. And that's kind of tapping into that muse that you and I first started talking about.
I think is the problem is the societal structure is kind of geared toward, if you study like Calvinism and the connection to capitalism, there's this idea like if you hoard and you get all that wealth, that there was an idea that put you closer to God. that the rich people were closer to God because having the wealth made them better people.
And
And so,
Jesus said it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it is to
yeah, I know.
put a camel through an eye of the needle. And he wasn't saying that you can't be a great human being and have wealth. He
Yeah,
was saying if when you make wealth and greed the idol, that you've lost your way.
I think that's the problem is that there's certain ideologies in economics that had decided in our society that a CEO can make hundreds or thousands of times more than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
I always question like, why is that one person worth more than the people who were the line workers, the architects, the designers? All those people aren't worth as much as that one man. How could that one man do everything himself? He doesn't. And so the idea that you concentrate the wealth in these kind of castes that we have in our society is very destructive because it leads to hoarding, it leads to not sharing, it leads to doing things that are destructive.
Keith, did you know we solved world hunger?
Well, I know there's enough food, but we don't pass it around.
we modern science has solved world hunger. Hallelujah. And yet we in America throw more food away than other countries could use to eat.
For money. I mean, we have companies that dump milk to keep the price of milk high, right? They dump
wild, man.
They dump grain.
All right, hey, I
They
know,
dump all kinds of
I'm getting out on like societal stuff, but the society and our personal lives are mirrors, right? So in society, we're saying, oh, okay, the greed of the corporations is harmful. Well, in our personal life, personal greed is harmful. And how does this manifest itself? Another thing that'll show up this way is pride. Pride's one of the other 8 bad moods. Pride is this feeling that I need to be superior. And so some people are like, okay, well, I need wealth. I need wealth to be superior. In an artistic way, it may be, I need fame. I need fame. I need fame. I need people to know that I'm great. That's where I was at when I told you I was coming up, and I needed to prove I was worthwhile. Um, Pride is you can't be prideful and happy at the same time. You also can't be lustful and greedy and happy at the same time. Happiness is a state that happens in the now. It's connected to presence. The Buddhist philosophy would teach us to meditate, to meditate, to be in the now. Like Ram Dass said, be here now. When we are here now, it's the only time we can be happy. When we are fully present in what is happening right in this moment, it's the only time happiness is available. Now, I'm not saying that we're happy all the time in the now, but if we're ever not happy in the now, it's because we're listening to our mind. And our mind is the one that makes us unhappy. And it makes us unhappy with 8 bad moods. One of them is lust and greed. And so when the mind is saying it's lusting for something, it needs more, it needs more, it needs more, we're unhappy with what's going on now because we're saying the now is inadequate. But the now could never be inadequate. The now is so freaking huge and massive and complicated. It's like once you just wake up to what's happening right now, like you can just be in so complete awe of how amazing this world is, like how amazing life is. It's so fascinating. And this is where we get lost in music, like, or art. And we're like, oh man, like I'm just so into right now, co-creating the muse, everything we talked about. That's joy, is being so lost in the now that our thoughts don't bog us down.
Well, being a cancer survivor, I kind of felt that. When I was 27, I had a level 3 sarcoma. I survived it. And what I started to realize is I was always obsessing about, like, oh, I want to get to this point. I want to do that. Not that, you don't want to plan, but I was very thankful and grateful for every day I was still breathing after I beat cancer.
Man, that's powerful, Keith.
It gives you a different mindset, because if you're in a mindset that you feel like, oh, I'm not doing without, right? I'm actually here. That being here in the present is a gift.
So beautiful.
Rather than looking at it as, oh, I'm not where I want to be monetarily. I'm not where I want to be in my job. You can take all those things and start pushing yourself down. Or you could say, you know what? There's a lot of wins today. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm having a good day. I'm talking to my wife, talking to my daughter, wave at the neighbor, look at a bird, start to have situational awareness in the now.
Yeah.
Instead of like always thinking about, oh, where's my bond, where's my stock market rating, and where's my crypto, and where's that? If it's not where I want it to be, then I'm down in the dumps. Like you got to start, not that you can't plan, but you got to have like a balance to, like, how important is that versus like your inner peace.
Man, so this is fascinating. How many years ago was did you become cancer free?
Age 27. I had the cancer. Age 28, I got out of it. Well, it took 5 years to be clear. So age 27 to 32. So I'm 56. So I've been cancer free since then.
Over half your life.
Yeah.
Man, congratulations, bro. And would you say that diagnosis was one of the most important things that ever happened to you?
Yeah, because I wouldn't have done a lot of things that I did. Like I went and ended up traveling to Japan, because before I would have been too scared to do that. I ended up, doing this podcast. I ended up creating music. I ended up pushing myself into places that I was uncomfortable previously, because I was willing to say, well, if I can survive that cancer, what's the big deal about this? What's the big deal about going to a country I don't know the language, but I'm going to be there for 2 years? It's like, well, I'm going to have to learn it.
I'm going to have to learn it.
I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to be in it. So, like, my parents and everybody around me said, well, how could you go there? You don't know how to speak Japanese. It's like, that's not a problem. You'll figure it out, and you do. You have to stop, getting nitpicking on all the little things that are hard. Just like
Yeah.
it start to accept it, like, oh, your brain's pretty powerful. You'll figure it out. You
That's
know,
crazy. Yeah, and so trust and confidence are two of the good moods that we definitely want to enhance. And confidence isn't like confidence is exactly what you just described. True confidence comes when we say the future is unknown, and yet I have faith in myself that I'll be able to handle it no matter what it is. And you got a whole track record, you especially, because like you've done so many crazy things where you've learned that, oh man, I can really take on anything and I'm going to be okay. But all of us have a track record of saying, I've never known what the future is, and I've been thrown into some crazy situations and I've handled them all, and I'm still here to tell the tale. And so when we get fearful of going for it, we're fearful of failing. And again, this is ego stuff. Like, what's the problem with failing? Nothing.
there's nothing wrong. I think it's actually good. As an artist, like your so-called failures are just rungs on the ladder to where you're gonna hit your success.
You
Yeah,
cannot have success without failure. The
yeah.
two, the two go hand in hand. In fact, failures is the way to success.
I'm in software design. That's my day job.
Yeah.
We go through iterations. Not everything we do works the first time. Sometimes we do iterations. You'll see 0.1, 0.4, 0.6, 0.15, 0.17. We keep on making iterations till we get it right. And we don't know what we don't know. Right. And a lot of times we're doing stuff that we never did before. Right.
And then you try it. And then you try it. And then you know what? Sometimes it freaking works.
That's why there are updates. Like, check your phone. Like, why are you getting all these updates? Because the software designers, that's why we didn't get it right.
Yeah.
But we didn't stop us from putting it out. We put it out knowing that now we can have continuous development, which is not the way it was back when I first started.
That's our life. That's our life too. Our life is
continuous development.
Hey, I'm gonna put out the best I got today. I'm not gonna be afraid to try it. I'm gonna put it out there. It's not gonna be awesome all the time. Sometimes it's actually gonna just be a total flop. I'm gonna put it out there and it's gonna be a total flop. But I don't need to worry if it was a success or if it was a flop. I just have to show up, do my best, live unencumbered, live free, create with all my might that I got. And then if it's a flop, learn.
Yeah. Lessons learned. Iterative, development is like, you can take that to your personal life. Like the way we do our software development, we have this concept called agile, which agile means we just do iterative development, which means that we're agile, which means that when I thought of it as like a jazz musician, it hits, somebody hits the wrong note and you look at that as an opportunity. That's agile, right? So if you make a mistake, well, it's a happy accident. Sometimes the mistake actually is more valuable than what the planned event was. There's a lot of things in development of science and stuff that are not actually known outcomes. They're kind of unknown unknowns, right? And you get this thing and you're like, oh, I didn't plan that, but that's actually better than what I planned. And then you go with that. Because that's sometimes it's actually going to do better than what we were working on. So we'll go work on that. It's like, oh, now we got an opportunity. And I think if you don't close yourself in a box of saying like, I can only stay in this range, I can only stay in this. I think that causes a lot.
That box is created by our fear. And, it's fear of judgment. It's fear of judgment by others. And it's rightfully so. When we were really young, we were not afraid of judgment. Like when I watch my kids, I got 4 young kids. Up until like the age of 6, like before the age of 6, they would just do anything, say anything, try anything. Didn't matter if they were going to fall on their face, get up in front of a bunch of people, sing a song. Didn't matter if they could hold a tune or not, right? Try a dance in front of a whole crowd of people just because they feel like dancing. And then something happens age 6, 7, 8, 9, where you stand up in front of class and you try something and one kid laughs. And then the whole class laughs. And you're like, oh, I shouldn't get outside of my box.
Yeah, the shame game.
Or they're going to laugh and they'll judge me. And then something else happens and you say the wrong answer, and then somebody laughs because you said the wrong thing, and then everybody laughs and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't speak up about what I think. And then we become adults and we're like, I'll only do what I'm good at. I'm going to stay in this little box. I've proven that nobody's going to laugh at me when I do these things. And so I'll just do these things, and I'm not going to get outside of my box because I don't want anyone to judge me negatively, because I got bad memories, subconscious memories of me being judged when I got outside my box. But here's the thing, man. All progress is outside of our comfort zone. And when we stay in this little tiny box, we're boxing ourselves in until we box ourselves in at the end of our life. Like, we are just slinking our way into our casket without ever making any waves, without ever being noticed, just making sure we just die without ever doing anything significant. That fear of, what if I went through this box and people laughed at me and said I was terrible? What would happen then? Man, what if I went to Japan and didn't know how to speak Japanese? How would I order any food? How would I survive? What would happen? I don't know, man. I think it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be okay if I start this podcast. I think it's going to be okay if I write this book. I think it's going to be okay if I try this new instrument. Let me just see what happens. If they laugh, they laugh. And then we try it. We put the podcast out. We put the book out. We try the new instrument. And probably at first, we're not super good. But usually there's supporters that are like, oh man, hey, this is good. This is good what you're doing. Let's keep it going. And then you're like, okay, well, now I want to get better. I want to become a better podcaster. I want to become a better author. I want to become a better musician. And we put on our 10,000 hours, and at some point that's our new thing. And we live a full life. So don't stay in the box.
Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of people, vulnerability, the lashback and the other side of it is like the shame and the people putting you down and the haters. And you kind of have to build up a little bit of a skin, a little bit of a wall to like, okay, I can hear this critical feedback coming in. But people take it to heart. Like, it's a matter, like, it is your ego that's causing the problem. Because, like, you don't want to get pushed down. You don't want to be, everybody wants to belong. Because we're human beings, we're very social. And so if you feel like I'm being put in the outside, the outsider's going to get knocked out of the clan, to get knocked out of the clan, then the wolf's going to be at the door. So I think everybody's still operating like you're going to get kicked out of the tribe. The wolf's at the door, the saber-tooth's at the door, you're all by yourself. And so you don't want to be in that spot. But
That's for sure. That's for sure what it is. It is a survival instinct that if I say the wrong, when we lived in a tribe, if I said the wrong thing to the leader of the tribe and he laughed at me and then everybody turned their back on me and I got kicked out of my own, I would die. I would die. And so the fear now of public speaking, or the fear of doing something new and getting laughed at, is that we really think we could die if we go out and say something that people don't agree with. Just push through that fear. We're not going to die. Usually there's okay, so there's just straight up haters that hate everything, like trolls, right?
Yeah,
they hate everything. I love Taylor Swift's song that she talks about people hiding behind the internet and just being haters behind the internet.
She has a lot of haters, but she's super big.
Oh,
so she's worried about the haters. Like, where would she be?
She is worried about the haters. And so there, we'll say on Taylor here, because she's the biggest artist in the world. Maybe she's the biggest artist of all time. And she might be the biggest artist of all time. No one sold out live shows like she sold out. She's bigger than the Beatles in terms of her live shows. And the Beatles were ridiculous. The Beatles sold out Yankee Stadium one time, and people were like, what? A musical artist sold out Yankee Stadium? That was like how big they were. But now she's selling out stadiums every single night of the week for like 3 years in a row in every single country. Yeah, like crazy, man. So sometimes there's just trolls. I don't take hate from people I don't know. So if I get hate on the internet and I don't know that person, I block, delete, and hide. No reason for me to engage in just straight up hate from somebody I don't even know. that's a sorry person, right? That's somebody that hates themselves so much that they want to spread more hate in the world. It's like you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. You squeeze a lemon, you get lemon juice. You squeeze somebody that's just full of hate, and hate comes out of them at people they don't even know, man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when somebody you don't even know is giving you hate, do not engage. No need. That is a hateful person. If you engage, you will not change their mind. They hate you and everybody, and they really, truly, they just hate themselves. So if you want to do anything, just say a prayer for them. Pray that they find some love in their life. Then you got criticism from people who do know you. That's called valuable feedback.
Yeah.
It's
And
hard. It's
constructive.
hard to hear. It's hard to hear criticism from people who do know you, who want the best for you, who say, that was good, but there was this one thing you did that wasn't so good. And then that can like really hurt. And you're like, oh, you didn't love it unconditionally? Like, I gave everything I had for that. But if you can be open to somebody who actually wants the best for you, giving you critical feedback can be the greatest gift. And this is interesting because we can grow from feedback. If we don't take it personally, if we don't think we should be perfect, that it's okay to be imperfect, it's okay to be on a journey of self-improvement, and that we'll never actually make it, we'll only ever start to get better and better and better, and it's a mountain without a top, how much we could grow, then every single piece of valuable feedback is a gift.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mindset. I mean, Bowie had this mindset. They said, I don't feel good as an artist unless I'm treading water artistically. So he would push himself into places that he wasn't that great, or push himself or be surrounded by people who were better at doing something than him, and not letting the ego, like go and like hang out with Luther Vandross.
What a freaking artist. That guy was such an artist in all these ways. Like, that's true. A true artist doesn't make music because they think other people are going to love it. They make music because they're trying to become a better artist.
Yeah. Well, you push into different places, and regardless of whether people dig it, right? Because sometimes people won't dig it. It's like life ebbs and flows. So you could be a high on the hog Ziggy Stardust, and the next thing you do, maybe that doesn't carry the weight that Ziggy had, but it hit a different audience. Young Americans is different than anything Ziggy did, right? But it's like he didn't mind change. Maybe that rock audience didn't like the kind of soul infused Luther Vandross version of what Bowie was doing, but he didn't care. He's like, I want to tap a different vibe. And I think you have to be willing in your life to kind of go in that journey, is to tap something that you feel is important, regardless of what anybody else thinks, and then take that critical feedback from the people who are close to you. And the enemy of progress to me is perfection. Because I'm always looking for the happy accident, because a lot of times those things are so much better than anything I planned. Not that I don't have my 10,000 hours, but a lot of things are kind of, it comes from trying something that you're not that great at. You try jump on the bass, and you're not the best bass player, but you might come up with something that a bass player wouldn't do.
Right, because you're good at all these other instruments.
Yeah, you might bring
you're looking at the bass from a different lens.
Yeah, I played like wind instruments. I might pull something from a clarinet and try it on a bass.
Yeah.
Bass player might not do that, but then they said, "Well, you shouldn't do that." It's like, well, maybe you think I should.
Maybe you should do that.
Maybe you should do that, because then it comes out in a different way. So the initial reaction is, "Oh, you're not doing it right." But the whole point was I didn't want to do it the way it's been done. I wanted to try something different.
So a lot of people, they talk about passion and going for their dreams is part of the keys to happiness. And we've been hitting on it this whole episode. But happiness, we are the happiest when we are progressing. Stagnation does not make us happy. Being perfect does not make us happy. Doing things to please other people, being a people pleaser, or doing things to get applause does not make us happy. Now, doing something to make somebody feel good, okay, sure, that can make us happy, but but we're not because we want applause, because we're trying to like feel good about ourselves inside. We are always happy when we are progressing, and that's growth, and it's growth beyond our current ability. And we can't be perfect if we're growing at the same time. So I don't know if this resonates with anyone who's listening, but this is it, get out of the comfort zone, get out of the box, continue to grow. I mean, that's really the message of this whole episode.
So if people go to your website, mattoneil.com, what do they find there? They connect with you there to get to your book and other things that you provide?
Yeah, man. So at the website, I got a good mood superpower quiz, and you can find out what like your superpower is. I do say play on strengths. So if you're really really good at a certain thing and emotionally, you want to lean into that, because that's going to give you the most confidence. So you'll find out what your superpower is at mattoneil.com. And then I've got a podcast where we just talk about how to feel good. And every week we put out an episode about how to feel good. It's called The Good Mood Revolution. And then on Amazon is the book, The Good Mood Revolution. It's a book about how to get out of those 8 bad moods and into good ones.
Well, I want to thank you for being a guest tonight. I do encourage people to click on that link because it will be clickable everywhere that we're publishing. We're just live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We'll be on all the other platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast by tomorrow. And thank you for Matt O'Neil for being here today. I do appreciate it. And thank you for being a guest on the Phantom Electric Coach podcast.
Keith, you're cool, man. You're one of the cool ones. Thanks for having me, man. I loved it.
Have a good night.